Chancellor seminar across the hall there, so it's a tough choice. So anyway, appreciate you being here and look forward to sharing a little bit about the diving community. How many divers are here? Mic drop home. So I'll just go through a melody of my favorite Wiggles songs. Only you covers if you're familiar with the Wiggles genre. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're on to for the PADI organization globally and domestically. We've had our 50th anniversary. Just recently, a little bit of the global network here to give you an idea of how many people are teaching free diving or scuba diving or something and inviting people across the planet into the underwater space. So you can see 133,000, 6,400 resorts or retail facilities. A lot of them are small specialty entrepreneurs, but some are large chains like Sandals and things like that. And the operating range is across the planet. America is still the largest certification market. It's not fastest growing. We're working on that, trying to bring more people into the space, because I'm sure all of you relate to it as I do, that if you bring somebody underneath and have a peak, the hearts and minds go with it. So we try to invite them to do that safely and feel comfortable and confident, go out and explore, and when they do that, pay it forward. And after you're teaching somebody else and sharing that gift, or thinking about ocean stewardship or something larger than yourself, or sometimes things with PTSD and other amazing things that scuba is doing therapeutically. So we like that part. We feel a responsibility. What are we going to do with this brand, this space going forward? We've been doing some thinking. I'll share some of that with you. So this gives you an idea of the tribe, if you will. The PADI membership last year in December issued its 25th million. And that sounds great. And that's a lot of divers across the planet, but there's 7+ billion souls on this planet. So our job in terms of mission orientation, we've got a lot more to do going forward to invite people into that portal. And as you know, being divers yourselves, largely, virtually everybody raised their hand. It's insight, it's in mind when we think about the problems and also the wonderful nature of the underwater planet. So we see it, we feel it, and we care about it. And you can get an idea there in terms of social when we talk about how do we influence the PADI network across the planet. The marketing, our chief marketing officers here in the room, Kristen Gillette, we work very hard to get the impressions out there, share the story through community and social. We feel that's something that we can be more and more effective at, and we're starting to engage that. But it's large, and we also have our members training a lot of new people. So year on year, if you think about diving experiences and diving certifications, we're pushing out 1 million unique new people every year too, which is great. We love that towards the mission that I mentioned before. And the media impressions, as I said, are pretty active across many media. The divers themselves they tend to be well educated. We're certifying young people. When you think about the median age, we're in the late 20s now. That's good. So it depends on your framework. When you think about new engagement, we're right in the middle of the millennial bucket, which is wonderful. And also the generation after millennials are starting to show beautiful increasing interest. So we think we're in the right place to influence. We want to make sure our messages are right. Certainly, the first and foremost thing is the whole safety and comfort aspect. But that gives you an idea of who the clientels are. It shows the demographic buckets there of who divers are now in that 1 million per year. So our vision now, when you look at 50 years, what do you want to do? That's half a century, so that's a long time. Brands usually don't last that long. So we want to be responsible and do good things with it. So you start thinking about, okay, we're the largest in our space on the planet. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean best. But we want to be the best for the world. And we figure if we can resonate the right messages, the right deeds, the right actions in the diving community of today and tomorrow, we can in fact drive towards that. So when we think about that being the best, the opportunities for impact are aligning our conservation programs and our conservation mentality with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So we think there's a parallel. So we're looking at a lot of NGOs for collaboration. Project Aware Foundation, certainly we started years ago and huge supporters of it. But as you know, if you interface with Project Aware, it also liaises quite strongly with other NGOs. So we like that, and we feel that's a good spot. And then amplifying the engagement efforts to support life below the water, conserve and sustainable use of the ocean, the seas and marine resources, the ICUN Conservation Congress goals. We're thinking these are ways that we can liaise and rally hearts and minds to at least direct people and get communication going, because we're a conduit for that. And as I said here, like-minded mission, like-minded passion groups, finding a way to connect the dots and get in front of people so we can help aid and abet influencing there, all towards that mission of paying it forward by exploring and seeking the adventure. So we feel a noble purpose there. And Dr. Earle's presentation this morning was great. We're liaising with her. Her Hope Spot thing really resonated with a lot of our team as well. We think that makes sense to kind of adopt or re-adopt your favorite site and set aside places that you can see hope for the next generations as well, because the baseline does shift, as we know, but there's always hope. I think Adam said if you leave things alone, lo and behold, they tend to rebound, assuming you haven't disrupted the basic drivers into those ecosystems. And you have to believe. I think the worst thing you can do, when my son was in marine biologist, he spoke to an industry icon in science, and the guy said, well, that's all lost, kid. In the 70s was this, that, whatever, your stuff. And he's like, Dad, there's no hope. I said, come on, man. There is hope. There's always hope. You can never give up on that. And I know you know that, because that's why you're here. And we've got to believe that. Despite all the horrible stuff, there's lots of good stories. And if you get those stories out, and you look at those hopeful stories of optimism and hopeful spots, people will gather, and good things will happen in the long run. Okay, so this global force for good. The 50-year legacy I mentioned before, what we're doing is going deeper into our legacy of ocean health, conservation, and trying to make the world a better place, become more of a powerful catalyst for constructive change. So when you have that kind of social, you have that sort of tribe, and it's that global, and certainly a lot of advocates here in the U.S., we think people will make up their own minds, but if we can connect the dots in terms of cause-oriented missions, NGOs, cool things they can do on a local level or national level, such as what's happening here this week, then maybe, just maybe, with enough emphasis, enough voices, like the old Dr. Seuss story when they all got together and they said, we are here, we are here, we're here, popped, remember? They were going to boil that dust back. Anybody know what I'm talking about? We've got a reputation for swirling out on limbs, but thank you. I know you don't, but thank you for humoring me. It's fantastic. Okay, so this is what we focused on in terms of social responsibility. We look at 4 pillars of change: ocean health. So in there, we're looking at MPAs, the marine debris problem. Whoever thought plastic would be part of the food web? On a molecular level, that's disturbing at best. Marine animals, sharks and rays at risk. We've done some cool work there as well, and certainly Project Aware have done great work there in terms of red lists and so on. Healing and wellness, that's the freedom at depth. That's things like John Hopkins' study on psychological and physical therapeutic adaptations of immersion on PTSD, TBI, things like that. It's amazing, actually. So that's really cool space. We like that. And people and communities, and this is a global thing. Leaving behind a good footprint, taking care of local communities across the planet that support a lot of Western urbanized societies, and also doing a lot of work training local people to become dive leaders, helping sponsoring their futures, and letting them care about their local environment sustained as well as they entertain tourism and so on and so forth. So those are the 4 pillars of change that we've established for ourselves and disciplined ourselves to go forward in. And I think empowering divers to become citizen scientists, activists. And I think a lot of that resonates with why we're assembled here. So a few anecdotes. The power of one. A lot of divers, a lot of souls, many of you in that space. But share some really quick stories about what can happen. An individual makes a difference. The old story of the starfish is all awash on the beach, and the little kid that throws the one back, you know the story, star thrower or whatever, and said, it doesn't matter, look at them, there's 10,000 of them. It matters to that one sort of story. You know that, that's why you're here. So sharing that story and inspiring others. So we have a program called Ambassador Divers. These are just some anecdotes from people around the world. People like Andre here from Barbados. He's a marine biologist. He basically inspires kids to protect the local environment there in Barbados. He's amazing, full of energy. And so we're helping get his story out across because he's doing some great work. And that's just one PADI member amongst 130 some odd thousand across the planet. But we can give him that lift. And we look here at Jillian here in terms of founded Sharks for Kids. How cool is that in terms of inspiring shark ecology, the issues facing shark ecology going forward, and inspiring a generation of shark advocates. This morning when we were talking about young people standing up, I saw middle school people. That's so wonderful. It's really cool to see young people who are concerned, and actually a lot of young people are concerned. They worry about the stewardship of the planet because a lot of times the media puts out nothing but negative and you think all is lost. So you start to inspire some of the issues and how they can impact that, in this case in Bimini in the Bahamas. lo and behold, the local kids there are starting to think about their ecology, their ecosystem, their animals, and thinking more deeply about conservation, which is cool. That's another story. And then Jack Fishman here in the Keys, when you look at what he's doing in Coral Reef and Ocean Conservancy with the local community as well, similarly themed, enlisting divers, enabling divers to consider marine ecosystems, become ocean stewards. Again, citizen science inspired by passion at a local level, getting that story out and blasting it across some of that media we shared with you before can make a profound difference. You just never know. Everybody in here was inspired, probably by many people, or events or deeds at some point in our lives. You remember that person or that event. So why not try to magnify that? And we have better tools now to do that than we've ever before with the power of the obsession compulsion we have in the palm of our hands. And thank you. I don't think anybody's texting right now, which is fantastic. Which is kind of unusual, really. Usually walking the walls myself. And then Ernst here, Ernst in Costa Rica, doing cool stuff again. You start to see a lot of these folks are thinking about kids, they're thinking about the next generation, and they're investing their time at a local level in that sort of messaging and looking at you have power. There's a young child here about look after your prospects of your future and building relationships in meaningful ways and getting them engaged locally. Cool stories. This is beyond diver education. These are people who get to that point as a diver, they've explored it, and they decide, what do I do with it? So they share that gift. And a lot of times they're teaching others, but they're also sharing that gift by paying it forward in a really grassroots manner. So connecting that dots. Ties right into tribal theory, connecting people to an idea to one another and try to lead them and empower them. So from a force for good, just a few little tick points here about how we look at it. We're committed. We've re-looked at ourselves in this 50th anniversary going forward, what we're going to do. And one of the world trends right now is outbound Chinese tourism. Lots of Chinese people are becoming scuba divers in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. And in our educational scheme, there is an embedded ocean conservation message, which is really cool because those people would never get that message in their normal walk of life. So it's just a little drop in a bucket that they're being influenced as they take that peek under the water, and we try to make them comfortable so they can become divers. They start to think about coral's a living organism, or something about the reef is alive. And I never thought we'd have that sort of influence. So you think, how do you responsibly leverage that, and not a wagging the Western finger way, but in a way that's meaningful, that they can take home and influence their friends, their social. So there's lots of different things there. And we're passionate about that meeting, about meeting the 2030 global agenda for the healthier ocean, whatever we can do. We've got this reach, I think, to mobilize divers. We'd like to use it nobly. Our professionals are so proud of them. Our divers are very proud of them. They can be a force. I just shared some anecdotes about what's happening now. Much more could happen for those that are so inspired. And forming strategic alliances where we can use some of our potential aligning with like-thinking people to do something cool. So that's who we're about. And I guess we all have the luxury when you get into a certain point in your life, what you want to do with it. And, how can we make a difference? Some of the agendas driving a little faster than we wished it would. It's got running away from us here and there, but we do have collective intelligence, power, and a will. I think we can do some cool things. So that's why we're here. We look forward to hearing questions. And again, thanks for being here.
Well, Sailors for the Sea is the only ocean conservation organization in the world that focuses just on the boating community. And we have a very tight focus. We've had that since we were founded in 2004. And our goal there is to really mobilize these lovers of the ocean, because over time, whether they're near shore or offshore, they see the degradation, they understand, they have concerns. We also, through the same kind of demographic research, because we're a very data-driven organization, similar to the PADI community, we find that these are influentials, they're generally very affluent, they travel, they're sophisticated, they have a voice, they know how to get things done. So we're very excited to be working with this community. And we take a very loose definition of sailor, as you can see here. It's a traveler by water. And part of this reason that we take this definition is because a canoeist or a kayaker would not call themselves a sailor. If you're a power boater, or a stink potter, as the glow boaters would like to call them, then you wouldn't necessarily call yourself a sailor. But everything that we're doing, every organization is really about the same message. We're trying to translate very complex ocean health or maybe regulatory issues and say, what does it mean to me as a citizen, and how can I take personal action when all we hear is that Chicken Little was right, the sky is falling on us. And so that message of hope is where we stand in our message platform too. So we were part of the Northeast Coalition for Marine Spatial Planning that developed the Northeast Ocean Portal. And just like the Mid-Atlantic map that Pete showed, this is the New England map. Highest concentrations are in red. You can see where the star is, that's Narragansett Bay. And on any great summer day on Narragansett Bay, we can easily have 500-600 boats. I mean, it's a traffic jam out there. It's really quite amazing. And part of the lessons learned through this whole process of interviewing boaters to find out where they went, what they did, how long were they gone, which helped really materialize where do we put our wind farms. I mean, the area off of Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Long Island is like the Saudi Arabia of wind. It's the best place in the world for wind farms. And we got our first one, and just a week ago, the island of Block Island went off its diesel generator for the first time ever. It's now 100% wind power. So we're very excited, and that's on just with 5 turbines there. So one of the things that we did regularly with our data sets is we look at what's happening with offshore sailing races. And these would be things like the Newport to Bermuda race, the Volvo race that came through and went around the world. And there's many others like that. And oftentimes, and this is hard to show the description here, but because they're all straight lines, but you know, the wind doesn't always allow you to go in a straight line if you're under sail. So what we find out is that there's not a simple, if it's an offshore regatta, triangular pattern where they're going around markers, because they have to go over here, they have to go here, they have to go here. So they actually cover more of an area of use than you would normally think. So it's like, oh, I'll just go down there and turn left there on that mark and come back down the other side. And that's not the case here. So we wanted to really understand a lot more about what drives boaters. And so we teamed up with Bonnier Publishing and surveyed their 350,000 subscribers, and they published Sailing World and Cruising World. A lot of great news came back from this. 97% of all respondents were concerned about ocean health, with 84% noticing a change in the environment. Well, that's the first step. You got to get people to notice the change and really say, ooh, I'm not so sure I like this change. So we went deeper, wanted to find out what they were most concerned about. As you can see here, the top 5 concerns are all the primary areas that we're working on as organizations in the ocean space. What we have here is an opportunity to customize different kinds of products, message platforms, and outreach so that it addresses their primary concerns as they move through their boating experience. So how do we engage the boating community? First off, we have our Clean Regattas program, which is the world's only sustainability certification program for water-based events. It's a hybrid combination of ISO and Global Reporting Index standards that's used around the world. Look at my sheet here. The numbers are changing so rapidly on us. We have been the sustainability partner for 1,000 regattas, reaching over 400,000 sailors as of this week. So it's a very widely used program. We also have affiliate offices in Japan, Portugal, and Chile. The second area that we look at is education for kids, ages 6 to 16. The Kids Environmental Lesson Program, or KELP, is really designed for the informal educator. These are people who don't have scientific or education backgrounds. And all of these modules are free, downloadable from our site, are designed to be done with common household items. So if you're a 17-year-old sailing instructor with no wind or rain, and you do something with your kids, you can use these activities. If you're homeschooling, you need support for your traditional academic curriculum in the classroom, you can use these activities. We've served over 100,000 kids in 36 countries with this program since it started. Another area is Ocean Watch. This is our adult education program. And really what this program does, it's an online series of articles that works to translate or interpret really complex ocean health issues. What does it mean to me as a boater? What am I looking at when I see damage going on out there? Those kinds of things. And also we tackle regulatory issues from time to time. The marine spatial planning one was a big one because all the boaters, particularly the commercial fishermen, thought it was going to be designed just to shut them down. But they would have a voice at the table, and that really gave them buy-in into the whole process. Then we have a green boating guide. This was released just in 2016. We did a survey of all the green boating guides that were out there. Some were 80 pages with 9-point font. Terrible, no one would ever use them. And so we looked at what would be the most salient information for me as a boater to learn about fueling, anchoring, and coral reefs, how to protect marine mammals, where is the migration patterns, what sort of sunscreen should I use without harming coral reefs, those kinds of things. And just in the first 6 months, it's released 20,000 downloads from the website. So very exciting products here, specifically tuned in to I'm a boater. So what does that mean to me? So I want to just leave you with a little sample of one of the customized products that we developed to reach our audience. And then here again, this is based on research, and I'll tell you just a little bit more when it's all over.
It's no secret that athletes hold themselves to incredibly high standards. When they're at the top of their game, they expect conditions to be perfect. It would be ridiculous to expect anything less. If something needs to be pure to perform, why would we put garbage in it? Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic enters the ocean. That's enough plastic to cover every coastline on Earth. Tennis players and golfers wouldn't put up with trash on their playing field, so why do we? Join the race to restore ocean health at sailorsforthesea.org. It's going to take a really big crew to fix this mess.
This was chosen, these two sports, is because boaters and sailors in particular play golf and tennis is about in equal amounts that they sail. So we wanted to identify them with other sports where there's nice clean playing fields with the ocean, and went viral. We had over 1 million hits on it so far, and views on that. So thank you very much.
Coalition of national advocacy groups for climbers, kayakers, mountain bikers, backcountry skiers. So we work on mainly terrestrial and river issues, but I think that it's cool to be here and listen to you guys all talking about the work that you do, and to sort of think about how to share sort of our craft and kind of advocate or activating the outdoor recreation community to work on conservation issues. We think about our work in 3 buckets, I would say: places, policies, and power building, meaning turning outdoor recreationists into outdoor advocates and connecting people with meaningful opportunities to make a difference for the issues that they care about. Places and policies, places we think of as being lines on a map. How do we take places that are currently managed for multiple use on public lands and elevate them into some sort of protected designation that's appropriate? And policies is looking at things like making sure that public lands are protected in a way that embraces active outdoor recreation, that the land management agencies are well funded to do their work, things like that. I think that we come from a really similar place, all of our organizations, and that we all have this sort of deep ingrained belief that what brings you to take action to conserve a place or to protect public lands is that experience of being out in these places and enjoying them. And so I think that that's something really powerful that all of our organizations are sort of able to bring to our work. I think that we have a few advantages relative to traditional conservation groups. One of them is that we have a really bipartisan membership. I think we split about 60-40 Democrat, Republican. So it's really helpful for us to be able to employ different messengers and share this idea that conservation, protecting places, it shouldn't be a partisan issue, that people across the political spectrum care about these things, and regardless of the political climate, we should be taking action for conservation victories. The second, I think, is that we all come from this place of direct experience, so there's a real authenticity to sharing that message. Like, we're not talking about places in the abstract, we're talking about places that you know and love really intimately. So I think that's an important advantage over some of the traditional conservation groups. And then the last is this story that we're able to tell about the outdoor recreation economy. Like, as Pete was saying earlier, it's not economic development versus preservation. That's a false dichotomy, and we have this story that we're able to tell about the outdoor recreation economy. It's $887 billion now is the numbers that the Outdoor Industry Association just put out a few weeks ago. So, to tell that story, we partner really closely with Outdoor Industry Association, with a lot of brands in the outdoor recreation space, and as well as with traditional conservation groups and the hunting and angling community. So we work very closely with the traditional conservation groups, but we think we try to be very careful to maintain our own voice on public policy matters, to make sure that we're not just perceived as one more green group, but rather that we represent something unique. And in that way, we look to a lot of the hunting and angling groups as kind of role models, because they have this bipartisan voice and they're able to speak about conservation matters across the aisle and have their unique voice, and we're trying to position our organization to do something similar. In terms of our approach, we started as a very DC-focused organization. We're a coalition of these 8-member organizations, and the idea was we would have a person who's now our executive director who would be in Washington, D.C., and be able to be almost like a lobbyist for these collective niche sports. And maybe we could speak as one voice and kind of punch above our weight and say we're the hue-powered outdoor recreation community, instead of saying, oh, we're just the kayakers, and maybe we would sound a little bit bigger and be able to get some more things done. And we had a lot of success with that approach, but we also came to realize very quickly that it's important to be dispersed as well. There are so many land management decisions that are made in the field, sort of contrary to the narrative you hear about, BLM or the Forest Service being this huge top-down organization that just sends out dictates from Washington, D.C. into the field. That's not true at all. And so being able to have people on the ground to engage directly with the land managers is really important for our work. And also, members of Congress care so much more about what their constituents think than what any particular national organization thinks. So being able to, help people in their own communities become messengers back to Washington, D.C. has been really valuable for us. So to implement that, that approach or that insight that we have, that it's really important to be sort of more geographically dispersed, we established, I think we're 6 now, regional networks across the West, where we work to help grass tops leaders from local mountain biking clubs, local paddling clubs, whoever, to work together on local and regional issues, and we kind of support their work with professional resources from DC or from our member organizations. And also, we're able to help those guys become advocates back to Washington, D.C., so that when we have something like a policy letter or testimony that we want to share in D.C., we're able to channel that through our regional network, so the members of Congress are hearing it not just from us, but also from people who represent constituents in their own districts. And then the second way we've kind of worked to implement that is through direct engagement with our community, sort of digitally most often. And the appetite for engagement in the outdoor recreation community on conservation issues has, I suspect you guys have all probably seen the same thing, has really taken off since the election, right? And I think that there's always been this appetite for civic engagement, but it's become cool in a way now. I think everybody wants to find a way to make a difference in the face of the current political environment. So we really try to take advantage of that enthusiasm. We people I think are really looking for trustworthy sources of information and sort of explication of what's going on in Washington, D.C., why it matters to them, how they can get involved and make a difference, and being able to share that information and opportunities to be involved is something that, I think for a long time we looked at that as, do we really want to burden people on our email list with like this thing, or should we really like try to engage people on this? Nobody wants to talk about BLM planning, but we've come to realize that people don't see it that way at all. It's much more that we're offering them an opportunity to make a difference, and people are fired up about that, and that's something that we try hard to take advantage of. I guess the last piece of that is that we try to do that member engagement in a really targeted way with a lot of geographic specificity. When people see that, a policy is affecting a place that they care about, they're much more likely to take action to protect it. When people hear that, their member of Congress is uniquely important on this issue because, maybe because they're on a particular committee or because they're a swing vote or whatever it might be, people are that much more likely to get involved. And so just giving people that information and helping them understand this sort of civic process around public lands management is really meeting a desire that I think is there in the outdoor recreation community to be involved in these kinds of issues. We use GIS a lot to make sure that we're targeting people appropriately, tailoring our message appropriately. Like an example of that would be this this executive order that Trump just signed last week to review national monument designations. So we have this list of 27 monuments that are being threatened, and we're going to be able to see what congressional districts each of those monuments touch, reach out to all of our collective membership and say, hey, this is what's going on, it affects this place that's in your backyard. We need you to reach out to your member of Congress and explain that this is an important place and you don't want to see this, these protections lost, nor do you want to see these attacks that undermine, the Antiquities Act or our ability to protect public lands in the future. And so, it's hopefully by doing that sort of advocacy, we have a greater effect than just sort of the indiscriminate mass emailing approach. People in Congress are hearing directly from their constituents that this matters to them, it matters to them for a really personal reason, and hopefully those members of Congress in turn are leaning into Ryan Zinke, and that, this sort of targeted advocacy has the ability to, move the needle on these things. And I guess the last thing to share is just that, I know that it's the same for people who care about the ocean, is, this is, people who are really into kayaking or climbing or surfing or whatever it might be, or sailing or diving, it's part of their identity, right? It's like people see themselves as being a part of this community. And it's just such a powerful thing. Our regional organizer came to Outdoor Alliance having previously worked for an NGO that focused on like national security organizing or something like that, something horribly tedious. And he was just talking, he always tells me about how, we get to skip this whole first step, which is getting people to care, to see themselves as a part of a community that has a opportunity or responsibility to influence policy on something. That already exists. There are people who self-identify as divers and as sailors and as kayakers, and they're hungry to be involved in protecting the places that matter to them, and we have this ability to help facilitate that, help make that happen for people by just sharing information, sharing opportunities, and engaging this community. So I think that, we're excited about, the opportunities to do this work and to kind of share this craft with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much for those presentations. That was terrific. And as promised, we've left a lot of time for discussion and Q&A. I have a list of questions, but I'm going to sort of put mine to the side because I want to give folks from the audience a chance to ask questions or to raise issues or challenges or success stories. So I'm hoping this has sort of provoked some ideas and questions from our audience. And we're just going to go ahead. If you have something you want to ask or raise, just raise your hand and we'll begin our discussion. And please don't be shy. Yep, someone back there.
Yeah, so this is a dream of mine, is kind of to get people so comfortable with being in the outdoors and using their bodies and using natural capabilities that we become less reliant on corporations and on the kind of systems that are destroying our planet. So I was wondering what your outlook is on, and your perspective is on maybe seeing people become so empowered that we start to rely on our natural capabilities through the experience of getting out into nature and hunting and fishing and doing the things that really make us connect with our wild nature.
I can give that a shot, and this may not be exactly what you're getting at, but I think all of us are familiar with the modern world, whether it's smartphones, whether it's the internet, there are all these driving forces that take us away from nature. And one of the great things about ocean and coastal recreation is it is a way to interact with that natural world. And for a lot of folks, it's more than just sort of the activity or the exercise or the sport itself. It's about immersing yourself in that environment. And I think that's true whether you're diving, whether you're sailing or surfing or at the beach or watching whales. And so, we really believe, and we've seen this, that people protect what they love. And so I think recreation is an incredibly powerful thing to engage people. And so one thing that we're working on more proactively, the Surfrider's always worked on beach access because we believe that our coastline should be open to the public. But we're sort of taking it one step further now where we are sort of actively, and I think our CEO mentioned this morning, trying to reach out to underserved communities and give them an opportunity to come to the beach and experience the coast and the ocean, have exposure to that, because people may not have that alternative. And so I do believe that if we are going to make advances in sort of protecting the environment, we need to kind of change that paradigm, and we need to make sure that people really do have opportunities to participate in recreation. So I don't know if others have.
Yeah, I would support, absolutely. I think obviously something touched you early in life, and it's the soul of the activity, and the only way to really establish that is to go out and feel something maybe bigger than yourself, however you interpret that. We like to think of it as the underwater space and whatever, and connecting that. But I think technology is fantastic. It can be all-absorbing, but it can be a leverage point to dream, too, about things bigger and more interesting than maybe what's in front of you. And that can be an enabler for anybody across the planet. So, and then the question is, how do you get people to engage? How do you get them out in the forest? How do you get them to the beach, or to actually be brave enough to get into the water somehow? So nobody cares about things they don't fully understand. I think the way to fully understand something is to feel it, see it, breathe it, and then weave it into your pattern of life. So moving your body, any kind of activity, is a good thing. It's tough to get people to totally dedicate themselves to one thing anymore, like the good old days. Sailors, the good old days, that's all they did, but now they apparently golf and play tennis too. And dive. Oh, and dive, absolutely, they dive. But, which is cool. The world is sort of ADHD in some ways, but that's okay. So just like part of your menu of life, just getting up, spooning up something like that. And then, as I said in my comments, I'm sure everybody here agrees, you tend to love and care about things that you can relate to if you're comfortable around them. But it's that connection. So however we can enable that, in hearts and minds early on, I think the better. And probably everybody here has a story that was inspiring them at some point, but maybe it wasn't, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but somehow pivoted or inflected your life in a direction that you look back and say that made sense. So how do we do that across a burgeoning planet of more people? I think technology can do it. But if you're just sitting there on the couch absorbed on that, then probably vicariously, not really, will devolve maybe and lose all our limbs in a million years or whatever it is, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think people need to feel they just need to help them.
Great, thank you. Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Levison. I work for Oceana. And I was wondering, because the demographics of a lot of your membership is they're probably, they're more male, they're more affluent, they're probably more politically conservative, probably quite a few of them voted Republican in this election. But, polling seems to show that however folks voted, if they voted for President Trump, it wasn't because they wanted environmental degradation or a decline in the way we treat our environment. So I'm just wondering if how your constituencies are reacting politically to some of the decisions, or if they're even following the environmental decisions that this administration is making, which I don't, at least from what I've seen, the polling isn't really in line with what most Americans are looking for on that agenda. And if you're, are you hearing from your members, are they concerned, are they weighing in? Because if they, these are very influential folks, and they could make a difference in terms of U.S. federal policy at this point.
Well, cool news on gender, just to comment on that. Actually, we're working really hard to balance that 50-50, and actually picking up a few points. We picked up 4 or 5 points in the last couple of years. So that historically has been skewed more that way. But I think part of it, people aren't maybe connecting the dots as it's early days. You'll hear something in the media about a rapid change in administration here, there, whatever, that disappears because you're on to the next thing. So maybe what I heard Lois talk about here before about connecting the dots was kind of interesting about how it might impact your national monument. I think that's pretty profound, especially if there's a legacy of your daddy's daddy sort of thing used to take you for walks there. That goes deep, and you realize how that might change. And telling that story, using media for that sort of thing, I think. So probably, I think a sleep is not charitable, but probably just not on alert mode, but concern mode is probably the way to describe it in early days. So messaging and in a non-inflammatory way is the way to, I think, to get a heart and mind thinking about what's in it for me. It's probably where everybody listens to that radio station more than any other one. And connecting that locally is maybe the way to do it, and then how to engage locally to influence it. So I think a lot of what I heard you say seems like you're directionally motivated at it, which is pretty cool, because then you personalize it. It makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm not asking what we should do. I'm asking, what you're hearing and what.
Yeah, I hope I answered. No.
No, we're open to advice without a doubt, but I'm.
No, I'm not giving you advice. I'm saying, I'm hoping you hear what I'm saying is. It's early days. They're not alarmed. Not, I think how does that impact me? Maybe is where the early days are with this. I think probably we're all struggling with that to some degree. I would say largely, or complacency maybe, there's some of that too. So.
Yeah, it is puzzling. It's hard to know, what exactly our conservative membership is thinking of all of this all the time, right? Because obviously, people join these organizations because they care about conservation matters to some degree. And I think that we try to get the message across to them that they are, as you said, in a uniquely powerful position because they are able to speak to their lawmakers in a way that they're having a level of influence and sort of more liberal people maybe or not. And I guess another piece to how we think about our membership is not just that we have Republican members, but that we have members who are represented by Republican lawmakers, right? So it's like if you're a Republican and your congressperson is, Blumenauer or Portland, that's not the person who's in this great position of authority, right? It's the person who's, maybe a Republican in a Republican district or a Democrat in a Republican district, and making sure that we're speaking to those people and encouraging them to directly engage with their lawmakers, I think is, an important part of getting results right now.
Our surveys show that we're about 55-45 male to female, and also about 55-45 in regards to Republican versus Democrat. In addition, we had an opportunity to work with a 50,000 person survey through our network and to find out what would be the motivational factors for people to take action. Saving the planet was about 5th or 6th consistently across the board. The first one was personal health, and the second one was always the personal health of a dear loved one. So every one of our messages is couched into the behavior of, this is A, going to affect your health and the health of your children and your loved ones. B, it's also going to cost you money if you're not paying attention here. So whether it's sea level rise, whether it's warming, whatever it might be, these will how to affect your lifestyle, so affect your loved ones. You need to wake up and take action here. At the end of every one of our Ocean Watch articles and in all of our emails, we always have a take action box, and we direct our constituency to groups like Oceana and others that are involved in policy and advocacy that we don't do. We tell them where to find their elected representatives if they want to contact and show their voice. So we
for 37 years. So I've sent sailors all over the world on boats and taken scuba divers. We were the first people to do diving at Cocos Island off of Costa Rica, and pioneered many parts of the world. And I applaud all of you because I really believe that it's exposing people to nature and getting people to love the ocean that ultimately engages people in strongly trying to save it. But I must say, I've gotten to know many of my repeat customers over the years, and I've been hearing a lot of concern from my customers. I've been having people, share with me that, quite wealthy, important couples going on the Women's March and all sorts of things. And I think part of it is the deep connection they have with the ocean out of the experiences they've had. So I bet there's similar things among your memberships. And thank you for the great work you do.
For sharing that. We've got 2 questions, so we'll go maybe Jennifer first and then Margot. That's okay.
So these are big issues that you're talking about, whether it be pollution or sea level rise or whatever. What do you tell your members to do, like to respond to something so big, and do they do it? What are the things that you ask your members to do for climate change or for sea level rise? And do they do those actions because they think their little bit will contribute?
I can maybe kick that off. I think our philosophy with Surfrider is giving volunteers sort of a menu of options. So starting off with very sort of simple, light touch actions that you can think of as an on-ramp. Those can be like stewardship, like participating in a cleanup, or sending an email to your elected official. And then the hope is that people sort of then graduate into more sort of civic engagement of doing more formal outreach, going to a city council meeting, doing other organizing of, leading an event or a protest, or, coming to Blue Vision Summit and participating in the Hill Day. And so, we find there's sort of just a real range of different types of drivers for why people get involved. And so, I think one thing is, you don't want to sort of stovepipe one person and say, this is the only way you can get involved. And so, we do give our local chapters a lot of latitude to identify the specific issues that are most relevant or most important, and the ways that those chapters want to engage. And there really is an incredible diversity of how our chapters sort of engage in issues. But you bring up a great point. I mean, we've thought a lot about sort of these national or global issues like climate change, where even though we're a grassroots organization, we want to sort of focus our collective network on some of these bigger things. So, we have tried to break it down in terms of, okay, what are specific goals that we have, whether it's convincing the administration not to back out of the Paris Climate Agreement, or whether it's at the state level, passing a state law or policy that will promote better adaptation to sea level rise. So, it's a great question. Others want to comment on that before we go to Margot?
It's hard to find out whether people do it or not. And you're especially challenged because sailors and boaters do not constitute a single demographic. And there's no one source of information for them, whether it's a boating magazine or National Geographic or Scientific American or the Surfrider newsletter. It could be any source, and so we don't know if they do it or not, but with our messaging echoing similar to everybody else's, then it just reinforces personal behavior within the community.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think that's the question is sort of about like the architecture of the campaign, and I would just sort of echo what you were saying about breaking things down into discrete things for people to do, and we think a lot about the engagement pyramid. So it's sort of how do you people might begin with signing up for a newsletter or clicking through on an action alert and sending an email to their member of Congress. And we do track people who take action from our action alerts and things like that, so that then you're able to say, okay, this person has done that, and you can follow up specifically with people who took action from an action alert and say, hey, thanks for doing this. Maybe you'd be interested in writing a letter to the editor for your local newspaper, or maybe you'd like to show up at a public meeting for course planning, or and it's looking for those people who have shown an appetite to engage at a deeper level, and making sure that you're sort of meeting that desire to engage and participate in the process, so you can find the people who really want to take those deeper dives on things.
We'll go to Margot. Your question?
This kind of goes towards the diversity focus. I don't know if you're familiar with REI's Force of Nature campaign, which I thought was really wonderful. It was women of all complexions outside doing stuff, and it was really positive. What was really stunning was on the Twitter feed, the response from many people who were predominantly male and white. And their claim was that REI was selling out to corporate and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, it's like, it was just really lame. There was some claim to that. You could see that they were like in discussion. Yes, I'm one of those people who will actually engage on Twitter, I know. Sometimes you can change minds. But I was just thinking too, the resistance, and then also like the demographic, and it just like kind of like, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, and I just thought, wow, hunting and fishing would be probably more than likely a lot of your R's, and those are in all those red states. And maybe is there a way also for, well, the sailors of the sea isn't always necessarily about recreation, it's also competing, right? And then the outdoor recreation thing, it's mostly recreation, but we have a lot of folks who are involved in those, like, REI is part of that, right? The Outdoor Industry Alliance, and you've got surf industry as well, I think, some paddling stuff, and that goes into the competitive sports. And I'm sorry, kind of long question. But I was just thinking, do you guys ever think about like ways that you can diversify the movement through maybe some, whether it's floats, like not competitive floats, but like working a little bit more with the ACA. ACA is kind of the American Canoe Association is kind of silent. It doesn't do a whole lot that I see. I hate to say it. Surfrider, I just love to model everything for Surfrider. I'm also a member, but what ways do you see yourselves diversifying your movement? Because it is something that it needs to be a focus.
Yes. What we find, and I'll just give you a quick scenario here about Newport, Rhode Island. Everyone thinks of Newport, Rhode Island as being just dripping in an absolute amazing wealth. And indeed it is one segment of the population. 65% of our kids qualify for free or reduced lunch. They live below the poverty line. Many of the kids on the center part of the island, which is where most of the Section 8 housing is, have never seen the water. So what we're involved with on the island is making sure that all kids learn to swim at the age of 2, because you have to be water confident if you're ever going to get into the water or on the water. And then by the time in grade 4, we've made arrangements with the Community Sailing Center as a support group, because they have the expertise in getting every one of those 4th graders out on the water and teaching them to sail. So you have to do it on a local basis. There's no way you can do a national campaign like that. Using the resources that are available, I think, is the best way to do it. But we find that just being water confident, even for adults, we find that throughout the Caribbean and all the races that go on there, many of the islanders don't swim. They rarely ever get in the water because they're not water confident. They're scared of it.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. David.
Yeah, it's true it's the early days, but it seems to be the early days of a, pollution-friendly climate denial, right-wing extreme agenda out of the White House and this Congress. And in that context, we've seen a lot of effectiveness from groups like the Outdoor Recreation Industry Association. For years, and Pete knows it, we've sort of had these panels with the thought behind them of maybe something called ORCA, the Ocean Conservation Recreation Alliance, or Ocean Recreation Conservation Alliance, where we might start bringing in different sectors of the industry, conservation-oriented groups like Sailors for the Sea and Surfrider, with the surf industry manufacturers, with surf shops, with PADI and Dan and the many shops I know, Dodge shops and operators who are pro-environment, companies like Patagonia that have a surf connection. I think that, to resist the reaction that's going to come down and threats to the monuments and the sanctuaries and NOAA funding and clean water. So I just wondered what people's thoughts are, how you feel about an attempt to build a kind of alliance between ocean recreation industry and activists as an organization.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, David, and actually one of the reasons I really wanted the Outdoor Alliance to participate in this panel, I think you gathered from Lewis's presentation, they predominantly work on sort of land-based issues. They don't necessarily have a lot of focus on ocean, but I think there's a lot to learn from what you do in the Outdoor Industry Association. I think it has been more ad hoc. I think that there's no one sort of single answer. But I agree that any opportunities for, I saw this panel as an opportunity to network with some great organizations that we don't talk enough with, and that there are a lot of other gaps in terms of sort of elevating these different user groups. One of the reasons Surfrider got involved with ocean planning is, we of course have this identity with surfing and beachgoers, but there was a much broader set of coastal recreation that we thought should be represented too, and not that we were the only group that could do it, but there was a gap there. And so, I think one of the ways that we're thinking about it is sort of from the bottom up, is giving tools for our chapters to organize with business petitions and things like that to get their sort of, build that sort of community. But I think from a Surfrider standpoint, I think we're very open to any kind of dialogue or structure that we can think about in terms of really elevating sort of that higher level industry leadership, because I think we do need to, at the national level, to speak more prominently, in terms of a sector. So I think we have a lot of work to do.
David, I think it makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, obviously, in those buckets. This room, I think, is evidence of that. However, it's got to come from citizens and individuals, not so much people in science, because they're afraid, a lot of them, about their own findings and whatever else. So
They're marching in the streets now.
yeah. So I think, and we're an educational group at its core, so we try to get, just to some of the other points, let people make up their own minds in a way, but put objective information up there, what they can do if they're concerned to their own life patterns in terms of however they want to look at it. So that's what we try to do. We don't try to scold or whatever, or alarm necessarily, but it doesn't mean that we're pussy-putting around, so to speak. So we put it out there, but I think concerned people in various buckets would welcome that sort of leadership, if you will, to, again, the dust speck analogy, we get the voice together and say, we are here, this is of concern. If you have sisters and brothers that are doing something that maybe you don't do, but you like to make sure that their legacy is looked after. I think you'd see kindred spirits coming together from the sea and the land people. So it does make sense. The problem with fragmentation is you lose impact, and I think some concentration that's responsible would make sense. And I think the people that are members of the various groups you mentioned and others might appreciate that. So it have to be thought through how to do that effectively, but I think the hearts and minds are there, just need to connect them, and what can you do about it? Concerned people want to know, what the heck can I do about it? And I think that's the whole name of the game. You know, what are people doing about it? Well, that could be maybe more measured impactually once you concentrate. So.
Yeah, I mean, multi-billion-dollar blue economy sector whose voices are heard.
Yep.
You know, as you know, speaking for Other Alliance, where we are ourselves a coalition and function with other groups and other coalitions. I think it's easy to get sort of like coalition fatigue sometimes, but my advice would be just start. Just don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Don't feel like there needs to be this elaborate coalition structure and bylaws and this and that in order to get things done. Just start working together and things will blossom from there, and just look for those partnerships and opportunities to work together.
Like they say in Congress, don't let the pure evil get in the way of just awful.
Don't equate it with that, David.
It's like I'm just slow.
Well, thanks so much. That was a great question to end on, and great remarks. So I know we've gone a couple minutes over. Thanks so much for coming out. I encourage you to read